Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining me today. My name is Mitch Tannenbaum, and I am the Chief Information Security Officer for Cybersecurity LLC based in Denver, Colorado. Last week, I talked about the challenges of remote work or telework and all the new security issues that that's bringing to the forefront. But I didn't say, well, here's what you might ought to do about that. So this week, we're going to talk about that and see whether or not we can make things a little bit less depressing and a little bit more optimistic. So here goes. If I can get my screen sharing to work properly. So first thing is, I talked about last week the 14th century castle and the moat and the drawbridge and why that model doesn't work anymore. So the alternative to that is hardening the endpoint. And I'll talk a lot about hardening the endpoint here in a minute, but that's ultimately your best bet. And the endpoint is either the end computing device or the end user. So um, first thing is the basis of a lot of people's belief that their computers are secure is that they've installed some version of antivirus software. In a lot of cases, it's free antivirus software. And some of the free antivirus software is fine. It works just fine. But nowadays, there's two flavors of antivirus software. The first flavor is kind of the old school antivirus software, which is signature-based antivirus. And the challenge is that as the viruses become more sophisticated, you can't have enough signatures. And in many cases, for some of these viruses, each download of the virus onto somebody's computer would trigger a different signature because they're encrypted differently. So what you really want to do is detect anomalous behavior. An example of that would be opening a lot of files one after the other, if that's not something that most people do. Uploading a bunch of files. If that's not something that you do on a regular basis, if you were to go upload 10 files in a minute, and normally you don't upload 10 files in a day, that would be anomalous behavior. So I recommend deploying some form of um, behavior-based antivirus as opposed to signature-based antivirus. Now, some of these tools cost money, and some of these tools are free. So here's a free tool. Cloudflare is one of the big content delivery network providers, and they've just released something called 1.1.1.1 for families. And what this does is if you set it up as your DNS provider, and if you don't know what that means, give me a holler and I'll explain that. And you can set it up in one of two ways. One is to block known malware, and the other is to block any content that's not family friendly, even if it's not malicious. So the advantage of Cloudflare, especially for home computers, is that it's free and it doesn't require any kind of management server. In fact, it's an unmanaged service. So that's kind of has pluses and minuses, but the fact that it's free and it'll block content you don't want, that's not a bad thing. And this is always going to be a layered effect. So we're never going to be in a situation where we can just do it once and say, okay, well, we installed this one piece of software and now we're fixed. So this is certainly a layer that helps. A competitor to 1.1.1.1 for families is OpenDNS. And even with the free version with OpenDNS, what they call the consumer version, um, there are some management tools that you can use and see what's going on. So that is a good thing. OpenDNS was recently, and I say recently meaning a couple of years ago, purchased by Cisco, which I wouldn't necessarily say is a huge plus. But it did give them a bunch of resources, that's for sure. And Cisco has pretty much left them alone. So that's all good. The pay version of OpenDNS is something called Cisco Umbrella. And Cisco Umbrella has a very robust um, centralized management capability. So if you're a business and enterprise and you want to be able to centrally manage what's going on, then Cisco Umbrella is much better than the last two solutions. Cisco Umbrella is something that, by the way, that we sell. So if you want that, reach out to us. The next one is Microsoft Intune. Now, Microsoft Intune is a really rich endpoint management tool. It does all kinds of things. It can set permissions. It can go off and enforce policies. Does a whole variety of things. Um, Intune is not free. Intune is you pay by the seat by the month. So that's the downside to Intune. But in terms of, especially if you run a Microsoft shop, a great way to harden the endpoint and get reporting and stuff is to use Microsoft Intune. Um, Another one is this whole issue of VPNs and what's called a VPN Health Check. So this happens to be Sophos, doesn't matter. There's a lot of people that make VPN Health Checks. In fact, probably your VPN provider does that. But what you're going to do is that you're going to make sure when someone connects by way of a VPN that things like critical Windows updates are running and that the user's antivirus is running and things like that. And you can typically configure what checks it runs and what you want the system to do if you have a rogue user who doesn't meet the criteria. But it's a great way to go do that and to ensure that users are really doing what you want them to do. Next thing, and this is definitely ratcheting up the food chain a bit, is called the Security Information and Event Management Solution, or SIEM or SIM. There's a lot of vendors out there. We sell some come as products, some come as a service, a whole bunch of different variety of stuff. But what these things do is they look at the log files on your servers, on your network devices, on your end devices, even in the cloud, and they will detect anomalies and they will alert you about them. So that's a great thing. There are many solutions, and typically the trade-off is, you pay less money, you do more work. You pay more money, you do less work. But certainly at the business level, having a SIM solution is a really pretty important thing to do. It definitely gives you a visibility to what's going on early on. The next thing is training, and training includes both um, regular user security knowledge and privacy knowledge, as well as anti-phishing training, where you phish your own employees. So we sell KnowBe4. You can see that KnowBe4 here is, whoops, that's interesting. Gartner's Magic Quadrant, it comes up as the most top, most right. And they've done a lot of great things. We've been really pleased with the product, but there are other products as well. But some form, and you've got to do it frequently. This concept where we used to have, well, once a year we're going to go off and put people in a dark conference room after lunch and let them go to sleep while we drone on about security. That's just not an effective solution. In the case of anti-phishing, you should be phishing your employees every week or maybe every other week, but certainly at least that frequently. So it's definitely something that needs to happen with great frequency. The next thing is backup, and there's really two parts of backup. So you got the backup of the servers that you're responsible for. So that could be a virtual server that you are renting at Amazon or you're renting at Microsoft, as well as the servers in your office and the workstations in your office. And there's a whole strategy you can put together in terms of what it is you want to do and how you want to do that and that sort of thing. But bottom line, make sure that you know that all the data is being backed up. The challenge we have nowadays is for software as a service product where you don't control the server, you don't control the application, and all you do is use it. The backup you're really relying on the vendor to go give you the backup. And if the vendor doesn't do it right, then you really don't have much of an alternative, but you ought to be asking a lot of questions and testing it to make sure that the backups really are running. The second part of backups is cloud-based backups. So we have a lot of people use Office 365, hugely popular, 100 million users, probably maybe more. And yes, Microsoft will, if one of their servers melts down, they will most of the time be able to recover it. We had a situation with Amazon recently, about a year ago, where they had a meltdown and they didn't recover a lot of data. So don't assume that just because the data is in the cloud, and including Office 365 and Google Docs for business, don't assume that it's backed up, because it may be or may not be. But you want to be in control. You want to have a backup that you control. And the last product I want to talk about is LastPass. And we also sell this. Um, and there are a lot of competitors, but these guys have a really great rating. This is, the category of products called the password vault. And the idea of a password vault is people can choose complex passwords and not have to remember them. So if your password is XQ47Z exclamation mark 92AYQ $exclamation mark pound sign, you're not going to remember that. But if that's stored in a password vault, you don't care. A password, LastPass can be configured to fill in the browser screen, and that's a risk versus reward trade-off if you want to do that. Um, but a lot of people use this. You can synchronize it. You can push passwords in an enterprise environment. There's a variety of different versions of LastPass, including ones that support two-factor, and so it's really a function of what your level of comfort is. But that's a great product. So all these products are just some examples of the kind of things that you can do to harden your endpoints and harden your network, because the bad guys are coming, and they're coming fast, and they're coming hard, and they don't care whether you don't think you're a target. You are a target. I guarantee you, you are a target. And it's purely the luck of the draw as to whether or not you are going to get hit in any given day. So with that, thank you for spending a few minutes with me. If you have any questions or interested in these products, let us know. And this is until next time, stay safe and have a great day.